Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this milkmaid blouse with puff sleeves. So please hit the subscribe button and let's head right into the tutorial proper. So guys, for today's milkmaid blouse with puffy sleeves, we're going to be starting with our basic bodice pattern, and this is my basic bodice pattern right here. So if you don't know how to draft this, there's a tutorial for that on my channel, so please check out the link right on top of your screen, or check for the link in the description box down below. So yeah, the first step, I'm going to be starting with the back of my pattern. So for the back pattern, I'm going to modify it to the style design we are working on today. So now for the back, so across my back here, this is my across back level here, I'm going to go in by 2 inches at the armhole side, or 1.5 depending on you. So for me, I'm just going to do 1.5 basically. So and then again, I'm going to decide how deep I want my neckline to be. So for me, the neckline is from the across back here, I'm just going to go down by, let's say, 1.5. So this is the depth of my neckline. So from here, I'm going to connect with my French curve. I'm going to connect this way, or let's go lower. So this is just perfect for me. So this is the depth of my neckline. So from here, I'm going to connect back to this point here. And this is basically it. So now I'm going to connect from here back to my armhole level, and this completes the off shoulder pattern for the back. So yeah, this is how long my blouse is going to be. From here down here is like I think 18 inches. So this is the end of drafting back pattern. So all you have to do now is just to add some allowance here. That is a 1/4 inch allowance here, 1/2 inch for the armhole, 1 inch for the side, and 1 inch for the hem, and that is it. So, and also for the back, you can decide to make your neck depth lower than this. It depends on you. You can go lower than this if you want, but for me, this is just perfect for me. So now let's move right ahead to the front. Now this is my front pattern. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing I did for the back. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the front. How I located my neck depth and then modified the armhole. So I'm going to do just that right now. So now I have this, and then the next step will be for me to separate my pattern. This pattern, I'm going to separate it into 2 parts. So to do that, I'm going to locate my under bust. So you locate your under bust on the pattern. So if you know your under bust measurements, you can measure your under bust measurement straight from the top down. So now I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to divide it along this line and separate it. So before cutting it at the middle right here, I tried to add my allowance to the neckline, add 1/2 inch to the armhole and 1 inch to the side, 1 inch at the hem. So now I'm going to cut it out at the under bust right here. So we can label this A and label this B. So I'm going to keep this A aside. So guys, this is it cut out. So now that space here, I'm going to, because I don't want it on my fabric, on my final cut fabric before. When I cut this on my fabric, I don't want to sew on these darts onto my blouse. So I'm going to close these darts right here. So that's that. I already closed the dart. So the reason why I had to cut it out at the middle here before closing it is because the dart is not straight. The lines are not straight. So I needed to cut it out so I can close this one separately and close this one also separately. So now I already taped them back together. So now that is all for this part. So all you have to do now is add 1/2 inch allowance right here, and that will be all. So when you are cutting this on your fabric, you place it, unfold, and you cut it, and that's it. So the 1/2 inch here is just for you to be able to sew it back onto section A here. So now that's it for this one. Now let's work on section A. So this section A is where the milkmaid design is. So to get that milkmaid design, I'm going to draw in slash lines into my pattern right here, and then before I'll then spread it out. So this is it, slashed and spread out. So I try not to tamper with the slash lines I drew here. So I'm going to just tape it back, the one I drew here. So basically just stops at the neckline right here. So I'm just going to close this, tape this back. So this is basically it. So now what I have here is the allowance, so half-inch allowance to join this A section, A part to my section B right here. Remember, I'm going to also add half-inch to this part right here. So now all I have to do now is to just cut this, and then I already have my allowance at the neckline of this, so I don't need to add any allowance here anymore. So all I have to do now is just cut this out, and then I'll cut it on my fabric. Now, so when I'm cutting this on my fabric, you have to remember to add half-inch allowance here, because this is not going to be on fold. We have to cut this in two separate pieces. That is this part here will not be on fold, so we'll cut it in two separate pieces. And then to cut that in two separate pieces, because we are going to join it back, you have to add half-inch allowance to join it back right here. So I hope you understand the drift. So now I'm just going to cut this out now and cut it out on my fabric. Then we'll move straight to drafting and modifying the sleeve of our dress. That is the puff sleeve. Now for the sleeve, measure, just get a long piece of paper like this. This is mine. So on this piece of paper right here at the top, I'm going to measure like let's say 6 inches. So once you're done drawing this line here, get your basic sleeve block. If you don't know how to draft this, first of all, please check out the link right on top of your screen to find out how to draft a basic sleeve block. So now this one of my old basic sleeve blocks. I'm going to modify this so that we can get an off-shoulder sleeve from here. So remember that on our pattern here, this is where our off-shoulder sleeve started from. That is from our cross chest right here. So measure from here. This is my shoulder line here. From my shoulder, I'm going to measure straight down to this spot here, and what I have is I think 3 inches. So I have 2.9 inches right here. So from here down is 2.9 inches. If you look at the pattern you drafted earlier, so the pattern on the pattern you drafted earlier, that is how we got our off shoulder. Our off shoulder was on our across chest level. Remember, I explained that earlier in this tutorial. So now that 2.9 inches, I'm going to measure down from here downwards, and this is it right here. So this is the line. This is 2.9 inches line down here. So I'm going to fold it. So now that I've folded it, this gives me my off shoulder sleeve. So now I'm going to fold this into two. This is the full sleeve already. This is the part that goes to the front armhole, and this is the part that goes to the back armhole. So I'm going to fold this. So on the line right here, I'm going to place this like this. So I'm going to place this like this, and then I'm going to trace this, the armhole here. I'm going to trace it straight up on this paper. So once I finish tracing it, I'm going to remove this paper. And this is it right here. I don't know if you can see it. So now I'm just going to use my pencil to bolden it so you can see it clearly. So this is the sleeve. This is the arm side I just traced out. This part here will be our allowance. This is the side seam. So now that's basically our off shoulder sleeve. So you can just draw a line. You can just draw this line all the way down to how long you want your sleeve to be. So now I'm going to decide how long I want my sleeve to be. So let's say your full length sleeve is 23 inches or maybe 24 inches because the sleeve is quite long. So I'm going to place my tape through like this. Look at this. on the 3-inch line, or 2.9 rather, on the 2.9-inch line here, I'm going to place it here, and then I'm going to measure the length of my sleeve. That's 24 inches. So the length of my sleeve is 24 inches. So I'm going to add like some allowance to this. So I'm going to need, because you understand that the sleeve has tiers. It has like tiers rather. So it's tier. So you know that there is a tier 1. If you look at the sleeve, there's like an elastic somewhere around the short sleeve area, and then there's an elastic again at another point on the sleeve. So to put in allowance for that elastic, I'll be showing you how to do that later. So but I'm just going to add in some allowances now so that I can put a casing on this for my elastic. So since my sleeve is 23 inches, I'm going to add like 4 inches to that. That's going to be 28 inches. So I'm just going to mark that 28 inches here. And this is it for the full length of my off-shoulder sleeve. Just in case you don't know how we arrived at that 4 inches extra allowance, I also explained earlier and said that there's going to be an elastic casing somewhere around here. So 1 inch will be here, 1 inch will be here. That's 2 inches allowance already taken out already. And then there's going to be 1 inch allowance at the hem right here. That will be folding. There's going to be a fold allowance also here. That's 3 inches already. So, and then at the top here, there's also going to be an elastic also at the top here. That's another 1 inch, and that's my 4 inches allowance accounted for. So now for that high puff on the sleeve, please note that when you're cutting on your fabric, this part here will be on fold. So for that high puff, I'm going to measure up 5 inches, or let's do 4 inches. So from here, I'm going to draw a curved line back to this point. And that's so you can add ½ inch allowance here round, and then ½ inch allowance also at the armhole, and then the 1 inch allowance for the side is already here, and that completes it. So this part is where we'll be attaching, this is where we'll be putting in our elastic for the sleeves. And so I already added my ½ inch allowance here, 1 inch allowance to the side, and ½ inch allowance to this part here. So now I forgot to mention this earlier. Remember that when we were drafting our bodice, that we went in by 1.5 inch at the armhole side here. So I'm just going to do that now, because if you decide to sew this now to this it will not be the same thing. The armhole here, it will be wider than this one here. So I'm going to do the exact same thing we did for the bodice. So we'll draw a new armhole. We'll draw a new armhole right here. So 1.5 inches. You draw a new armhole. So I'm going to chop this off and redraw. I'm going to redraw my allowance here. So I'm also going to have to redraw the shape of this from here. I have to redraw it back to this point here. So now I have to trim this excess off. And this is it. And these are all the cut pieces. This is section A. This is the upper part of our blouse. This is the part that will go here, right here. So this is the part that will go right here. I already ironed my interfacing to the back of this. So I'm using the fabric as the lining also. So I'll be using this to turn this. I'll be using this to turn this, and this is the middle part here. This is our armhole. So yeah, this is everything for the front piece. So all I have to do now for the front piece is to turn my neckline, turn this part also, and then I'm going to gather this part here. Then I'll do the same also for this one. Turn the neckline, turn this part, and then I'll gather this part. And then once I'm done gathering for this one, I'm also going to turn it inside out with this. This is my lining. So once I'm done, I'll attach this to this. I'll first join this together, then I'll attach to this part here. So I'll be showing you how to do it when I'm sewing, so you can watch me sew it. So this is the back piece. Remember to notch your dart. So this is my dart spot here, and this is my lining. So yeah, and this is our sleeve. right here is the sleeve. So now let's move right ahead to sewing all of this together. So this is the lower part that will be attaching this will be attached to this. So but before we attach this, when I was sewing it, I was showing you a hole right here where we'll be passing a rope into that we'll be using to ruch the neckline. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to sew. I'm just going to sew like maybe a ½ inch stitch right here all the way here. So that casing, this stitch here is where I'll be. It will once I'm done stitching it, it's going to produce like a casing here. So that casing is where I'll be passing my rope into. So this is my rope here. So I'm just going to fold this. So I'll fold this, turn it inside out and fix it into this part, into my neckline here, and then I'll do the same also for this part also. So I'm just going to go right ahead to do that. So once I'm done doing that, I'll also gather this part up, this lower part, I'll gather it up. I'll gather this part also up, then I'll join these two together, right sides together this way. So I'll sew ½ inch, but I'll not sew it all the way because you know we have to fix a rope into this, so you can stop somewhere like maybe 3/4 inches lower. Just measure maybe 3/4 inches down, then that's where you stop when you are joining it. So basically that's it. So I'm just going to do that now. So once I'm done, I'll just attach to this one here. So I hope you got the drift. And this is my back also. I've done finished also the back. This is it. So my dart is already sewn in, and then I've turned it all the way through. So that's pretty much it. Then once I'm done with the front, we can then attach our sleeve to the body. So now let's work on this right now. And this is my casing sewn down. So what I'm going to do now, also this is the second casing also sewn down. So what I'm going to do now is to pass this rope through this casing. So if you look at the rope, you see that one end is closed up like this. So one end of the rope is closed up, this is it, and one end is open. So the opened up part, this part here, this is where I'll fix in my pin, and then I'll pass it through from here, and then once it gets here, I'll have to stitch it down here. So I hope you got the drift. So now let's do this. So and that's that here. So now all I have to do is just stitch this part up like really well. You stitch it, and then that will be all for this. Then you do the same also for the other side. So I'm just going to stitch this up now and do the same for the other side. So once I'm done, I'll then have to gather up the lower parts right here. So now all I have to do now is to attach the sleeve, and this is the back piece. I'm going to fix my zipper right here. I'm going to fix my zipper right here in the middle. Now to attach the sleeve, the first thing I'm going to be doing, so make sure you notch where the armhole of your sleeve, where it starts. This is it here. This is, I already marked this. So this is where my armhole will start from and ends here. And then I also did for the other side. So everything here from here down to the other side, I'm just going to sew down by maybe I added 3/4 inch at this part here, like 3/4 inch along. So I'm just going to fold it and sew down that 3/4 inch. So inside that, once I'm done sewing it, inside that is where I'll be attaching my elastic for the sleeve. So yeah, so that's that for the elastic for the upper part. So now for the tiers, I'm going to measure from the top. I'll measure, you measure where you want the first tier to stop, where your short sleeve length, you measure it from the top down and then you mark it. So once you mark where you want the first tier to stop, let's say this is where I want the first tier to start from, I'm going to fold it this way. So you can just mark like 1 inch. So once you mark 1 inch there, you fold it this way. Hope you can see what I'm doing. So you fold it this way and then you sew down. So once you sew down, it automatically creates a casing. So you sew this part down here and then you sew this part also down here. So automatically it creates a casing for the elastic. So once you sew down, let me pin this down so you can see. So let's assume you sew it down here and then you sew it down also here. So automatically it will create a casing for the elastic inside here. So I'm going to sew it now so you can watch me sew it. So you create a casing here and then you measure again for the second tier and then you create a casing again for the next tier, and then the hem, you fold your hem and sew it down. So that's basically it for the sleeve. So I hope you got the drift. So once I'm done doing all of that, then I'll just attach it to the bodice of my blouse. So you can watch me sew it. So if you don't understand what I just explained. So yeah. So another way to create casings for the elastic at this part of the sleeve, that is at the tiers, is for you to cut another strip of fabric and then you sew it on top of this. So if you don't want to sew it the way I just explained, let's assume this is another strip of fabric. So you cut it at exactly the same length as from here to here and then you sew down. You sew down here and then you sew down here. Then it automatically also creates a casing. So whichever way you want. So now I'm just going to sew all of it now. Fix my zipper and complete my blouse. Now this is what the completed casings, this is what it will look like. So now you can just fix your elastic into this and also into this and also into this. So I'm just going to be doing all of that now, and then I'll complete my blouse. And that's it, guys. Please tap the subscribe button, tap the like button, and turn on the notifications bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos when I post them. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.